say, I have to redo that again. Good morning, you guys on Facebook and the place and on my podcast. Today we are going to talk about your inner voice. Who is the inner voice and what is your inner voice and what have you more? So very interesting because a lot of people are talking about their inner voice and and what does it do to you, right? So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you want to join us in the after party in about 30 minutes, just drop us a message and we'll send you the Zoom link and you can join us in the after party right there as well. Yeah. All right. That sounds cool. At least I think it's cool. I hope it's cool too. Hello, Joanne. How are you doing? Frank, no Yitka today. Irene and Hans are with me here on Zoom. And I hope a lot of you guys are following is on Facebook today as well. Yeah, a little bit a question that I had after talking a few weeks over, do you have an imposter? And if you want to know about that, just go back to last week. We talked about the imposter and imposter syndrome. And actually, when I was taking some notes, I was actually thinking about, well, who is that voice actually that sometimes talk to us, by the raise of hands, who has the feeling that sometimes a voice is talking to you? No, no one. Yeah, we all have that, right? We all have an inner voice, right? And now there could be a positive in it that depends a little bit on who you are. It could be a positive inner voice, and it could be a little bit more a negative or critical inner voice, right? So who has the feeling that it is most of the time kind of an critical, maybe even a little bit negative inner voice, right? Who has that? Most of the time have that, some sort of a critical inner voice, right? So most of the people that have that, right? And I was doing my research this week, and to be honest, it was a lot this morning because I had a busy weekend. You guys will see more of it. We were not only playing in the snow, guys, if you think that's what it was. We were actually working in that little cabin there. Yeah. That, what kind of work is Hans thinking? Yeah, we had actually, I digress immediately. We had actually a virtual conference with a guy called Peng Joon. I'm completely digressing here, but you can write that word down: Peng, P-E-N-G, and then second name June, G-O-O-N. If you look for an awesome coach, high-level coach who can teach you to how to do internet marketing, and you don't want to come to Jean, I can highly recommend Mr. Peng Joon. Irene put it in the chat here. Unfortunately, he's also Asian, so you're kind of stuck with that, with those type of coaches. So that's about the same, but super good coach. But the coaching was at Malaysia time. He started in the morning, and it started at his in the morning time, which was 8 o'clock for us in in the evening, and went up till, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even later in the night. The first night it was a little bit shorter, and the second time. So that's what we did. So we felt we had to go to a different place to do that. And I tell that for a reason, because these coaches tell you all kind of things, right? And for instance, I can definitely show you how you can, take from a passionate idea that you have. Let's say, welcome Danielle, welcome Monique. Let's say, so Monique is really good in makeup. I can help you to bring that business online. And then your inner voice says, one inner voice says, that would be really awesome. But the other inner voice would say probably like, yeah, like I could do that. I can hardly turn on the television, and you think that I can do that. So, and then the other chip on your shoulder says, yeah, no, that would be a great idea if I can just do it from home. Everyone is doing it from. Okay, Monique, you can do that because you cannot even use the remote control. so then you have those two voices in your head all the time, right? And so while he was coaching us, I must honestly admit, he gave great ideas, but there was once in a while was this voice, yeah, I know you can do it, but I'm not sure if I can do it. right? Or there was another voice saying, why is this young man talking to me about marketing? I freaking have a degree in marketing. Do you really think that I need to listen to you? You have all these voices in your head. At least I do have that. That's why I once in a while need to go to a shrink, to get my head cleaned out. um, that's a joke, by the way. And but I've been to a shrink in my life, to, to be honest, right? And there's this great story about this young man, and he's a Native American, and he's going to his, what they call a medicine man, right? In Native American, I don't know if you saw um, Dances with Wolves, but that's a great movie. I would all recommend you to see it if you want to know. It's the first movie ever done by Kevin Costner where they used the native uh, um, language in the movie, and they said to Kevin Costner, "This will never work. That would be a disaster movie." And he made it anyhow. It won, I don't know how many Oscars. Became one of the greatest movies ever, I think. But anyhow, you get a good insight in this. In this life of these Native Americans, and the guy that becomes his friend is the medicine man of that tribe, right? And he also falls in love with the stepdaughter of, or the, I think the adopted daughter of this medicine man. A great movie. This little side story. But let's say Kevin Costner talked to this medicine man around the campfire. You can see all sitting there, and he says to this campfire, "I have these voices in my head that sometimes they say, no, I need to help you guys, maintaining your life and tribal life, and we need to stop this killing all this of the Indians. I have these voices in my head," and the others say, no, 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 I am an American and I need to defend my uniform, and what do I do with all these voices in my head? And the medicine man says to him the following thing. This is like the cutout scene, Yeah, this is the unseen scene that I tell you um, about about Dancing with the Wolves. So that's not real, by the way. But anyhow, the medicine man says to him, everyone has two wolves inside of them, and one wolf is talking to you like this, and the other one is talking to you like this. One is typically try to draw you a little bit more to the darker side of life, and the other one is trying to do a little bit more positive. The other one is maybe doing a little bit more, oh, you're not good enough to do this, you're just a soldier in this case, or you're just a hairdresser, or you're just a dance teacher, or you're too old. And the other one says, no, everything is still possible, you can do all these things. and then this man, let's call him Kevin Costner for a moment. His name is Dunbar, but let's call him Kevin Costner. Um, he says, but what wolf do I listen to the best then? And I said, well, the man says, I don't know, but I know which wolf you will hear the most. And Kevin said, who's that then? That's the wolf that you feed the most. And if you just stop it there for a little moment, that's really a good thing. It is always the voice that you feed the most that in the end you will hear the most, hence you will also listen to the most. Does that make any sense? Yeah, so it's the voice that you hear the most. And so I went a little bit, because I thought it was an important lesson, a little bit beyond what I just read. Um, the most psychological articles, they talk about it's a critical voice. And if you do work that I do sometimes with unfortunately, I have to say to the ladies in the room, that it is more ladies who suffer from this feeling that they're not worthy, they're not good enough, and they see that as their critical voice. And most psychological articles talk about that one voice. Um, but in my study of this, actually, I must say to you guys that there is actually more than one voice in your head. It feels like we're all a little bit schizophrenic. But last week we did a little bit, and we'll do it in the after party too. We'll do a little exercise. There are voices in your head that are just critical. And I asked Hans in last week the question, what is a good use of that voice? Actually, in some cases, that is a good use of that voice, right? I'm teaching you guys now a lesson. It's maybe a little bit nice to be a little bit. critical, right? Is that true what he's saying? Maybe I'm going to do my research myself. That's a good thing, right? You have some people, they are more cynical. That's not very helpful if you're in a learning situation, because that's more like, who is this guy talking to this, then better not listen at all. Cynical is typically people who have been through quite a bit in life, and they start to mistrust people. You could have also a little bit of a naive type of voice in your head saying, oh, who is this good looking guy? Anything that he says must be true, right? It sounds a little bit weird, but celebrities, when they walk into a room and they teach, and you see that in our own dance world, when a famous teacher comes in and he start to talk, and they have such a status that a lot of these specifically younger teachers, younger students, are so in awe with that person that they actually think everything that he says must be true. See, that's kind of your naive voice. It does happen, right? Now, of course, if you have a beauty like me, I have that all the time. But that that happens to me. But so in reality, these voices, and there are more voices. Think about the voice maybe of your cultural upbringing, right? So and that happens a lot too. So in my, I can definitely give you an example. In my culture, it is very impolite to touch an older person on the head. Very, very impolite to do that. So once I was working at a company, and I was the older person in the team, and some of the younger guys just say, "Hey Jean, how are you doing?" He tapped me on the head, and my inner voice immediately said, "What are you doing?" And that's so impolite, and my inner voice became also my outer voice. What I didn't listen to, was my other voice, who just could have warned me, saying, "Hey, this young man actually has no clue about your culture. Maybe he's just trying to be friendly." And he was. But I was on my high horse and saying, in my culture, that is so not done, and you're a no good. And it's like, it's like people are so often quickly insulted because their inner voice, their cultural inner voice, says this is not appropriate to what it is, but the other person doesn't even know. So you should have a little bit other voice that say that. Now you say, hey, wow, that's a weird story. Think about what happened to us in the Netherlands, if you're from the Netherlands, with unfortunately a lot of people in our Muslim community. And I'm saying it out loud because I want to be a little bit stronger in my voice to saying what's truly going on in this world. And that is, people are insulted about things that the other person don't even know they are insulted with, right? Does that make any sense? So if I do this to you guys, that will be a huge insult for all the people from that community. Now, if you were online and I know you from the community, and on purposely I do that, that would be truly insulting. But if you have no, most of you might not even know what is he doing. Showing the sole of your shoe to someone from a Mediterranean culture is highly, right? Is highly insulting in some countries. But if I do it accidentally, like that man did with my head, I should have another voice saying, this man is doing it. But some of our cultural voices are so strong that we stop listening to the other voices. Does that make any sense? Right now, I see there are, I have Hans on the line. He's from the northern of the Netherlands. I have Frank on the line. He's from another part of the Netherlands. We have Joan on the line, who is from Korea. So we all have these different cultures, and it's definitely fine. But do know that all these things create different voices in our head, And sometimes there's only one thing that has to happen to you in your life, and that voice will keep sounding in your head. If someone with some sort of power of authority said to you, you're no good, you will never reach anything, that could break you off for your entire life. Now, try to test me I'm wrong on this, because I know it's true, and I know it's true for some of you. These voices in our head can become so strong that we also don't even know how to quiet them anymore, and makes us less confident. Sometimes we feel unworthy, and we don't achieve anything in our life. So these articles that we're writing about your inner voice, they're absolutely true, but they miss I think, I mean, of course, if you read deeper into the subject, you will find what I have to say. But they typically only talk about that one negative voice. You have one negative voice, you have one positive voice. Skip that away. First, try to identify who is saying it. And why would you not do that? You do that in normal life, right? If I would turn off all the videos, right, and we all start to talk and you say, hey, that's interesting, you start to figure out who is saying what. Yeah, who is saying what. And if I tell you that you have different voices in your head, and sometimes one is just a loudmouth, you have to ask you who is saying what. And am I the cause of that voice still being there, or can I just tune off the radio and say I'm going to listen to a different voice? Sometimes we mix with that's who we are with the voice that is talking to us, because the voice that's talking to us is not who we are. That is always coming from either a culture, from an event that we had, from the experience that we went through. It could come from several things, right? But the voice in your head is never you, and never let it be you. Now, is it always easy? If I, in the after party, we can definitely talk about it. Is it always easy to quiet that voice? Hell no. I wish it was, right? I wish you could just turn it off, but that button, that radio in our head seems to be often so broken, right? So we need to do some work in that. And in my line of coaching, I call that shadow light coaching. Other people call it part work. You can look all these things up, but you can definitely do something about it. And sometimes it's just that simple, saying, oh my gosh, that's my dad talking to me. You find that out, and that's not who I'm going to listen to, at least not now, right? Or remember, if you are in a certain situation, know to what voice you want to listen to. The voice, the protector, there's a voice in you that constantly wants to keep you safe. It's really good that it is there, right? So if something goes on and you need to adjust, you need to judge whether you wanna run out of the house. Let's say your house is on fire. You don't want to have the accountant in your head talking to you saying, oh my gosh, look how much value currently is burning around me. You want to get the hell out of there. Does that make sense? And then afterwards you can say, oh, I'm sorry. So that's when you need to your protector. But can you imagine if your protector is constantly talking to you, which basically causes that most people don't do anything anymore because they get so afraid that they want to stay safe. And if you want to stay safe too much, you wouldn't move around at all anymore. Some of you are online and help them to go a little bit further than they initially want. And they can tell me later how their protector were talking to them. Probably like you can do this all the thing. So it could be a little bit, sometimes a little bit confusing. Is it the protector or is it the critical? You can also have the over enthusiast in you. And I'm talking to you like that because you have different characters online. I have a different, and I have that, right? You give me half a word and say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, like me. I don't even know what the assignment is in the group, and I'm already raising my hand, right? I'm just already a little bit afraid that they don't pick me, right? So that's a little bit like it. I'm sure if I take ski lessons ever, God forbid, not for me, but for all the other skiers, I'm like, I don't need all that, first on these skiddy hills, and then, what, all these colors, blue hill, let's immediately go for black. That probably would be me. Yeah, that probably would be me. That's another voice that is like not such a smart voice either, right? That's the over enthusiast. And then strangely, and then last but not least, and then we stop right there, is you have certain situation trigger certain voices in you. And I'm sure you all have been there, right? You get in a situation where you're nervous, then your nervous person comes up. And specifically people who go into competitive situations, they train so hard and then boom, they meet it. So we call that conditioning. Some triggers. Now I know at least one person in here, which I on purposely put a different voice in the mind and saying, hey, if you are in a situation like that, can you remember when something good was talking to you, right? And yeah, that was in a certain place in Canada. And I said, okay. Let that person talk to you while you're in it. So you could use it, reverse it. You can literally ask to you, what voice is talking to you and which not. Now that sounds maybe complicated, but just do it in your head for a few moments. Think about, what voices have been talking to me, even when I was talking to you at this moment. It could be a voice like, "Oh man, that's such an idiot. That's brilliant. I should have done this way before. It's so easy. Why do I have this?" Another voice might say to you, "No clue what he's talking about. So complicated, always what he's talking about." So if you are in a lesson situation, I've said that many times before in when I was starting my lectures. Then I always say, there are three ways to learn. The first way is you always admit what I say, which is a great way of learning, because then you learn nothing, because you always agree with me. You can also be very Dutch and say, let me first find out if he is really good enough what he is doing. So you're very critical, also not a good way to learn, right? And then the last one is just have a completely open mind. And to have an open mind, you need to quiet down all the voices in your head. And that's really hard to do, right? It's really hard to do. But the fact that you already want to do it is already a good thing. And then later on, when this little workshop on the inner voice is over, you can decide, I don't like what he said, and then you can let all the other voices come up. And maybe you just do a little game for you. And maybe you do a game with you that goes as follow. Okay, so what Jean said, if I'm very critical, what do I not like about what he said? Okay, then you will find out something. And then you just to say, okay, if I'm now the over enthusiast, what would I do if I would be the over enthusiast in Jean's head? Oh, then I would do this. And strangely enough, if you play that little game with you, then you start to come up with different outcomes. And you can use that, you only need to do two or three, and you can use that in specifically in learning situations, but it could also be in life-threatening situations. It could also be in romantic situations, right? You know, you could be the over-enthusiast, right? Someone takes off yeah, you could, I want to make jokes, but I'm not going to do it today. Maybe on the after party, maybe in the after party, right? But you could, your inner voice. Let me do it anyhow. By the way, I was going there anyhow, so I cannot. And once I was so in love with a girl, and I was 15 years old, so it didn't mean a lot, right? It didn't mean a lot, but I was so in love with a girl, and her name was Barbara Lietzenberg. So if you're online, Barbara, this would be really embarrassing for you and me. But and Barbara was, I think, about a year older than me. But at that age, can you imagine? Boys, girls, she was older than me. But I thought she was so gorgeous, right? And there were days that I just walked the dog, and I would walk by her house, and I would try to find a glimpse of her. But that voice in my head built up such a crazy story that I actually believed that Barbara also did the same thing to me. I knew that was not true, and then one day at Christmas, so I should have told this a few weeks ago, but one day at Christmas we would go to late mass, right? With Catholic late mass Christmas, and on Christmas Eve, and just a few rows down, oh my gosh, there was Barbara Lietzenberg. And not that I normally would pay attention to what the pastor would tell me anyhow, but this time I definitely did not pay attention at all. But in my head was going, there she is. And I was such a confident boy that she also liked me. But then there was this moment that we walked out of the door together, and I managed it all. I manipulated. I was really perfect set up. And at the moment that I could talk to her, I was thinking, why would she ever like a boy like me? I'm an Asian guy. She doesn't like boys like that. I was from this confident boy. I was just like nothing. I didn't mean I and then she said, God came to help to me. And she said, hey, what do you do for New Year's? And that was a special thing, 12 o'clock, we go in the neighborhood. Why don't you come by at 12 o'clock, after 12 o'clock, and then we can have some, drink and stuff, some fun. Like, oh my gosh, that's the amazing thing. But I was so nervous the whole week. So I decided to call her, right? I found her in the phone book. You had a phone book. Some people might not know what a phone book anymore. And I had to pay money. And because we didn't have a phone, we had to call it the neighbors. And I didn't want to call it the neighbors because then they would hear that I was in love with Barbara Lietzenberg and I couldn't do that. So I went to a payphone. I called her up and she picked up and she said, hello, this is Barbara. I said, hello, this is Sha. And she said the most horrible thing that you could ever say to me. She said, who is this? And there it was again. My voice, she told you, she doesn't even know who I am. I had to explain to her that I met her in the, I said, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I remember, but I didn't know your name. I said, how can it be? I've been in love with you for a whole year. You don't know my name. So see, and so my voices went back and forth. Now you have to know me a little bit. I'm pretty good in pumping myself up, right? So I listen to my other voice. You quiet down. You can do it. And you know, long story short, we had a little fling for a little bit. I thought her younger sister was way prettier anyhow, but anyhow, it was, it all went good, all good, all good. I had to throw in that little twist, I read. It's a true story. And Barbara and the younger sister, Hilda, I apologize. I still, I think you're great people, and I know you have great lives. But anyhow, that was eons ago. But that story about those voices is absolutely true. I think most of you can recognize yourself in that. You pump yourself up, you cut in a situation, and suddenly the voice that you thought you quiet down was loud in your ear. And that's the thing that we need to stop. It's not when they are talking to us and we know it, but it is when they suddenly pop up when we don't expect it and we don't need it. Does that make sense? I didn't need that voice at that moment. It was not the best voice I needed to listen to. Yeah, does that make sense? All right, so guys, you on Facebook, if there are any questions, let me know how that was for you to hear me talking about your inner voice. We all have inner voices. It's a good thing, by the way, right? The other thing that I teach is, you need to know how to quiet them once in a while, but you also can use it to you, because these voices are, of course, always a little bit a part of you, but some part of you just show up when you don't need them, and some part of it shows up when you actually do need them. And the trick of life is actually know when you let what part talk and what part not. Does that make sense? So that's about your inner voice. I did it again. I did it in half an hour. Isn't that amazing? Right. So to the people on my podcast, I say thank you for listening to my podcast on Thrive, Not Survive After Abuse. I will be back with a normal episode tomorrow. And then for the people on Facebook, if you want to jump on the Zoom, you can still do that. Just send me a personal message. If not, then I'll see you back on Tuesday, 12 o'clock at the place right here on Facebook Live. And for the people on Zoom, of course, I always say stay behind and we can have a little bit of an after talk. All right, let me stop all this.